Google stock is soaring, rising with 10% just in this month alone. So, to many people's eyes, it looks very expensive. But it actually might not be, because there's one thing that makes Google way cheaper than it should be, which I will reveal later. But first, let's find out how cheap Google really is at the current price according to valuation metrics. When it comes to the price to free cash flow ratio, Google has it around 40, which is really high. But at the moment, Google is heavily investing into capital expenditures, and this can make the company's price to free cash flow increase. But we have to remember this is on a short term basis, and the money spent on capital expenditures are going to bring value in the future, especially because of their high return on investment capital, which we will talk about in just a minute. So I'm not too worried about the price to free cash flow ratio when it comes to Google. The return on investment capital for Google is pretty impressive, standing at 30% on the 5 year average, and today it is at 32.5%, which really just shows that Google is good at allocating capital. And that is also another reason why I'm not too worried about the company investing into capital expenditures. And you might have wondered, what is the free cash flow specifically spent on? Well, it is primarily spent on their investments into Google Cloud and AI services that takes up a big portion of the overall capital expenditure spending, but it's also providing value to Google with fast growth, especially the cloud business, as it is growing with a rapid pace of around 21% annually. It also accounts for 13% of Google's overall revenue. While they are investing heavily in it, this will provide tremendous long term value for the company, which is promising to see as it indicates management is focusing on sustainable and long term growth. Another thing that makes management stand out is Google's profit margin, which stands at 28%, which is really impressive. And it also just shows that Google is making a lot of profit from each dollar of earned revenue. If I were to ask you, why will Google grow in the future? It might be hard to find an answer because this company have achieved so much, but there is still a lot of growth potential for this giant company. First of all, as we just talked about before, the cloud business for Google brings a lot of profit because it is growing rapidly, as I mentioned, with a growth rate of 21% year over year as of 2024. And the industry is also really big, with a total market cap of 313 billion US dollars. Now, Google Cloud owns around 11% of this total market cap, which is actually a bit, but there is also room for taking over market share, with Google's great way of creating a moat for itself and the heavy investments. Though it does have some serious competitors, such as AWS, which is Amazon, and Microsoft Azure. So it is going to be hard to take over the market share within this industry. But what if Google just remains its market share and follows the estimated growth projection of the cloud business? Well, it would still grow at an annual rate between 15 to 20%, according to analysts, which we do, of course, have to take with a grain of salt. But even if the cloud business can grow at just 10%, it would still be very nice. Another thing that would help Google grow massively in the future is the moat, as they have a wide moat, especially when it comes to their search and advertising business, as Google owns the two largest search platforms, Google and YouTube, and their competitors are not even close, as Google has 91% of the search engine market share, and it has had it in the past decade, so no one is really touching them in this space. And when it comes to YouTube, something that I found out is if you compare the average time used per session to its competitors, YouTube is absolutely dominating this, with an average time per session of 40 minutes. And the only company that comes close is Facebook, with a time of 25 minutes, almost half of what YouTube has. And this just shows that Alphabet is great at keeping their users on the platform, which earns Alphabet more money because YouTube can advertise more to their users. But we also have to take a look on the average monthly time spent on the apps. And here we can clearly see that TikTok is the dominant leader, which also means if we look at the other chart that people are using TikTok more times per day than YouTube. So how is YouTube going to compete with this? Well, YouTube Shorts is the answer, as they've been growing rapidly in the past 5 years, and surprisingly competing well with TikTok, as today there's 2 billion YouTube Shorts users compared to 1.58 billion TikTok users, though TikTok has more viewer engagement than YouTube Shorts, which does make sense, as people using YouTube Shorts are also watching long form content, taking away attention from YouTube Shorts. Though YouTube Shorts also got most of its users from people watching long form content. But in general, YouTube are competing well with its competitors. Next thing that might help Google grow in the future is their AI projects. And I don't want to be that big AI lover, but it is something that could hugely benefit Google in the long run if they do succeed with their AI projects, as it would help them generate more revenue through monetizing AI technologies in many different ways. For example, through Google Cloud AI services and AI driven advertising solutions, such as smarter targeting in Google Ads. Google can also attract businesses willing to pay for enhanced AI capabilities. It also helps them compete with competitors by enabling better decision making and predictive analytics. For example, Google Search and Google Assistant are more efficient and capable than many of their competitors due to AI. Finally, they can also expand into more markets such as healthcare, autonomous vehicles, and advanced robotics. But it isn't necessary to know all this AI stuff to the bone if you want to invest into Google, as it is at the moment not that big of a project compared to the whole company, so you don't have to spend countless of hours trying to find the nitty gritty details of Google's next big AI project. Lastly, let's talk about the valuation before moving over to that one thing which makes Google special. So, in my opinion, given all the growth factors we have discussed and the great management which have provided strong return on investment capital and profit margin for Google, I think Alphabet can grow at a growth rate of 10% respectfully. And to me, this does seem like it can happen, as the company is great at innovating and adapting. Now, with this growth rate, it will give Google an intrinsic value of $150. But we have to take the margin of safety into consideration, which I put at 20%, because Google has a wide moat, leaving us with a final share price of $120, which does make Google look very expensive, but I do think there has to be an exception. In the start of the video, I did say there was one thing which did make Google look cheap, and it is the moat. As you might have noticed, that is basically what I've been talking about in this whole video, and it's because they've just built an incredible moat over the past few years. First of all, the management is great at allocating capital, providing the already good business with a high return on investment capital and great margins. Next, they dominate the search engine industry and the advertisement industry, beating competitors. And lastly, their ability to adapt and go into new markets while still growing the overall business and also growing their new business to take over large amounts of the overall market share from strong competitors is magnificent. So I really do see a lot of upside to this business. And that's also why you could argue that Google is fairly priced. Now, personally, I got a position in on Google at $162 per share, which in my mind it seems like a reasonable price to pay for an amazing mode business. And I already have seen a bit of upside just recently, but I'm definitely holding this business in the long run. Thank you so much for watching, but if you might not be interested in only investing into individual stocks, check out this video right here where I explain how you can become rich by investing into a fund and doing no work at all.